Hello, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guests may not represent those of the host of the station. Folks, I am so excited today. But before I introduce my guest, I'm going to do public service announcement. We're almost at June. This show will post in June. June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. Take care of your brain. If you have any concerns of your memory, please, I beg you, consult your primary care physician about any concerns about your memory or your loved one's memory. And with me today, I am beyond the moon excited, is Martin Schreiber, who is a former governor of Wisconsin. He had a great political career. He is an Alzheimer's advocate. He is a caregiver advocate. He's a former caregiver to his wife, Elaine, and I dedicate this podcast to his wife, Elaine. And Martin Schreiber is author and writer of the wonderful book, My Two Elaines, Learning, Coping, and Surviving as an Alzheimer's Caregiver. Wish I had that book about 15 years ago. Marty and Elaine were high school sweethearts, and Marty took care of her for 20 years, 20-year battle with Alzheimer's, and Marty and Elaine have 4 children, 13 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren. And any profit of the book goes to support Alzheimer's caregiving programs. And I am so excited and honored and privileged to have with me today Martin Schreiber, and I want to welcome you to Chatting with Betsy. Thank you so much for coming on with me today.
Well, Betsy, it is my honor, particularly recognizing all of the very important, great things you do to help caregivers just learn, cope, and survive. And a true pleasure for me to be with you, and a special privilege to be invited to be with you too. So thank you, Betsy, very much. Thank you.
You are welcome. It's my privilege, folks. I'll tell you right now, I might get choked up and verklempt here. This is a topic near and dear to my heart. I have watched Marty Schreiber on YouTube. He's on YouTube. Look him up. Talk about his dear wife. And I want to ask you, Marty, what motivated you to write your book?
Well, a number of things. One is I'm on this journey with Elaine and her diagnosis and her memory leaving her. And what happened was I began to realize that I was doing some things horribly wrong. And I realized also that I was extremely selfish. And I also began to realize that because of me being ignorant of Alzheimer's, we were missing out on moments of joy that we could be having if I would better understand the disease. Now, when the doctor told us that Elaine had Alzheimer's, the doctor did not realize that there were 2 patients, which I now want everyone to understand. When there is an Alzheimer's diagnosis, there are 2 patients, the person who is ill and the caregiver. And so because we are not recognizing the impact of caregiving on the caregiver, many times the caregiver can die before their loved ones because of all of the emotional and physical challenges that are there. So I saw what was happening in my life. I began to realize it, and then I began to understand I've got to be doing something to help people who are going to be coming on this journey so they can save the learning steps that I had to go to. I wanted to make sure that I would be able to share with others how they can better learn, cope, and survive that of being a caregiver. And I to this day rue the inexperience and the ignorance that I had. but at the same time am pleased that I finally began to understand one of the most important things in life for me with this challenge of Alzheimer's is to have and help my wife live her best life possible. So I wrote the book so I can help others deal with this disease, help them live their best life possible. Sort of a long explanation, but it didn't come as a smash in the night.
That's wonderful. And I told Marty before I started to record, I can relate to Marty because I lost my spouse due to Alzheimer's, and we take our pain and what we didn't know and our mistakes, and we tell people because we don't want you to make the same mistakes that we have. And I say, Marty, there's no perfect caregiver. You know, we learn as we go along. Back when your wife was diagnosed, back when my husband was diagnosed, I'll go back to even like in 2000 when my mother-in-law was diagnosed. There wasn't much information like there is today. People now can take a book like yours and read it, and which will help them tremendously. We didn't have that available to us when we were going through.
You're right. Two things. One is, going back 20 years, 30 years, whatever we experience, we are practically speaking, no better to prevention or a cure than we were X number of years ago. And now, that doesn't mean there's not research. That doesn't mean there's not progress. But the fact of it is, if we are living in the year 2024, we have the same kind of challenges dealing with this disease as we had before, and no practical solution. So that's one aspect. But the other aspect is, I contend, if there's one thing worse than Alzheimer's, it's ignorance of the disease. Ignorance of the disease by the medical profession, by the medical profession who does not understand. There's two patients, but also ignorance of the disease by me, the caregiver. Ignorance of the disease because I didn't share enough information with that of my children. Ignorance of the disease because I tried to keep Elaine in my world, and you and I both know that we can't do that. We've got to join their world. And finally, when I understood that, when it finally got through to my head, it made all the difference in the world. Elaine could smile again, be more comfortable. I could take a sigh of relief because I finally was getting a grip on it.
Oh, I can relate, Marty. I had an epiphany. Matt was probably mid-journey, and I would get annoyed with him. Like I said, folks, I'm not a perfect caregiver, and I know I wasn't. And I would get annoyed with him because he couldn't see what was in front of him. Where's my water bottle? Matt, it's right in front of you. And it would be in the colorful holder. And then I watched a video, one of T-Plus Snow's videos about vision and how it affects, the Alzheimer's affects your vision. And then once I educated myself, I no longer was impatient about that. And I also had an epiphany one day. I was, I guess, not in a good mood, and I said, I can't get out of this house. I lost my freedom. And I was crying, and I came back. I apologized to Matt. And I thought to myself, I'll gain my freedom when Matt dies. He'll never gain his freedom. Nobody chooses this disease, believe me. Nobody wants this. And we learn, Marty, as caregivers, and we need to, I tell caregivers, show yourself grace and compassion and kindness because, we're going to make mistakes. We are. And there's a lot of information available now, tools for the caregivers. And it's slowly, and I mean slowly changing, I think, Marty, that attention is given to the caregivers a little bit more now than ever before.
I think that's absolutely, well, first of all, that's absolutely correct. And what is beginning now to become better understood, and that is, if you and I would be heartbroken because our loved one has this Alzheimer's, and we're heartbroken, and now we feel guilty because we can't, take care of them because it's regressive and things change and so forth. But what we are beginning to learn, and what we had better learn very, very clearly as caregivers, is we are the lifeline for our loved one. And what happens is we caregivers for many years have been gnawing at that lifeline. So when it comes time to throw it out to our loved one, it breaks. Well, how do we gnaw at that lifeline? We gnaw at that lifeline by not getting enough sleep, by not getting enough socialization, by not getting enough exercise, by not getting enough respite, by not simply taking care of ourselves. And what hit me Betsy, unfortunately, I got involved with drinking. My children had almost an intervention, and my daughter gave me a big article on the benefits of moderate drinking, and it wasn't because I was drinking too little. But here I was heartbroken because Elaine had this disease, and what was I doing? I was doing everything opposite of what I should and could be doing if I really truly loved her. And once I understand that if I really truly love her, I'm going to take care of her lifeline, which is me. And I'm going to try and get enough sleep, and I'm going to try and eat the right food. I'm going to try and get enough exercise. And so we have to, I think, make the determination. First of all, we know there's no immediate cure for this disease, so we can't fight it head on. But, Betsy, what we can do is we can make the determination that we're going to help our loved one live their best life possible, and we are going to help ourselves live our best life possible. And so if we can make the determination to help our loved one live their best life possible, what we're going to do then is take care of ourselves. Because how can we do it when we're angry and irritable and so on? So, gosh, wonderful things you've learned and sharing. Thank you for that.
So true.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you know, I'm Marty, and I like to get things from a male perspective. And trust me, you're not alone with some people, go to drinking. Some people do drugs. Some people shop. It's to numb the pain because we don't want to face what we're going to face. I actually had, and I don't know why, suicidal thoughts at one point. I'm thinking about the railroad tracks by where I used to work and how they would feel in the winter versus the summer. And that scared the crap out of me. And I said, what am I thinking? I would never, take my life. But there are caregivers who do. And we have to help the caregivers. And, we're taught, especially at a certain age, if you come from a certain era, especially as a man, right? You have to suck it up. You can't show emotion. That's weakness. That's bullcrap, folks. That's old school nonsense. And Marty will back me up with that. We have to address how we feel. We have to take care of ourselves. And, I have a saying, Marty. I'm a Jersey girl, so I'm a little, blunt. But my saying is self-care is a matter of life and death for the caregiver. That's what it comes down to. And if you want to enjoy your life with your loved one, and after your loved one is gone, you have to take care of yourself. That's just the truth.
Okay, and let's make one step further. When my children sat me down with that intervention, they said, it's not only mom. First of all, we don't want to lose both parents. But then they said, you have to take care of yourself because we want a dad. And your children,
right.
Our children want a grandfather. And you can make a difference still in your life. And if you want to destroy yourself, what sense does that make? And but there is an innate problem. And that's why what you are talking about, Betsy, is so important. We men have an innate problem, and that is we don't ask for directions. We can take care of it all. And so I'm trying to take care of Elaine. And boy, I tell you, I'm going to beat this Alzheimer's and so forth. And so I'm going through counseling, and it's just a horrible, horrible time. And so I go see the counselor. She says, what's wrong? I says, I cannot see putting Elaine into a nursing home. I just cannot see putting Elaine into a home. And the counselor looked at me and said, you are not putting Elaine anyplace. You are giving her an opportunity to be who she is now. Can Marty Schreiber's 24/7 nursing home care take care of her? Absolutely not. Can Marty Schreiber survive any more time trying to do what he's doing without getting overwhelmingly into the bottle? And so, no. And so, but we get to the point where we just simply have to understand that so here's what I learned, Betsy. I learned that forget about what's good for Elaine. I'm in this fight with Alzheimer's, and by God, how wrong can that be? That was terribly wrong. I'm not thinking of Elaine. I'm thinking of my own ego. So I try and tell male caregivers, you can't be afraid to ask for directions. And I also want caregivers to understand, whether male or female, that to ask for help is a big, bright signal, a fireworks display about the fact you're not giving up. And people think, oh, I can't ask for help, and so forth and so forth. Well, if we're surrounded by an enemy and we know that our demise is imminent and we don't do anything more about it, it means we're giving up. But if we're surrounded by an enemy and we think we can get support, if we think we can go out and get help, that is what we've got to be doing. And so please, caregivers, male or female, understand what Betsy is saying. You've got to take care of yourself. And here is the thing. Both Betsy and I have lost our loved ones, and our life goes on. And we still have the opportunity to make a difference in other people's lives. And so you, too, have to take care of yourself so that should your loved one pass on, you, too, can have an opportunity to make a difference in other people's lives. And what greater blessing would there be than that? What kind of greater legacy could you leave to your loved one than to know that because of this tragic, tragic disease, you were able to make a difference in people's lives, to bring them moments of joy, to give them some respite, to give them a feeling of understanding and accomplishment. And so, listeners, listen to Betsy.
Oh, they should listen to you too, Marty. Thank you. I just can't wrap around my head sometimes. I'm in a lot of caregiver groups. I've been in caregiver groups since 2014, and I have one of my own. The guilt, Marty, that people feel about placing their loved one. Oh, they think they failed them. No, you did not fail your loved one. Our loved ones need care more than what we can give. We're not a 24/7 nursing home. We sometimes have to put our loved ones in a facility. And I think a big mistake sometimes, Marty, is people compare their journey to someone else's. Because people will say to me, oh, Betsy, you didn't put Matt in a facility. Well, Matt was able to be at home. However, if Matt would have lived longer, I would have had to place Matt in a home. I would have. And I never promised Matt that I wouldn't place him. What I did promise him was I would tell the world his story. That's what I promised him. Now, my dad also had Alzheimer's. My mom didn't want to place my dad because she felt guilty that she had to place her mother. My dad fractured his hip, and he went for rehab, and she took care of him for a week, and then she realized, I can't take care of your father. And, we don't want to lose our mother. Just like you said, your children don't want to lose you and caring for their mom. And that's how we felt about my mom taking care of dad at home. She couldn't do it. And it's just, and I don't get adult children telling their parents, putting a guilt trip on their parents, oh, why don't you keep them at home? Or judging someone because they place somebody. I see a lot of that in groups. I'm going to say it right now, folks. Do not judge anyone's journey. Don't judge someone because they placed their loved one. It's not a failure. I'm going to tell you something, folks. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign of strength when you can go for support and say, I need support, I need help, because we can't always have our loved ones at home. If it's not safe, if it's not safe for you as a caregiver, safe for the person, your loved one, and if, be honest, when we don't put our loved ones in a home and they need that care, that's negligence. My husband did not want to put his mom in a home, Marty. He did not want to, and I kept telling him, Matt, you need to put your mom in a home. We can't take care of her any longer. When he went to the doctor, and the doctor told him, they said, Matt, you need to put your mom in a home or we can, get you for neglect. Then he woke up. I said, thank you for telling him, because people are in denial, Marty, about the situation sometimes.
People are in denial, and when we have that experience, sometimes people just don't come to that acknowledgement. They just refuse maybe to admit that their loved one is ill to that extent. And it's not difficult for me to understand who wants to get to the point where they have to acknowledge that their loved one is leaving them, that their memory is disappearing, that the Alzheimer's is going to rob them of whatever plans and hopes that they had in their life. And who wants to give that up? But the thing is, when bad things happen, we can yell and scream and even rebel. We can do that. Or we can step back and look at what is. And once we understand what is, we can focus our energies on how to make the situation as good as possible. And so, I don't, and Betsy, of all the people that you've met, but I'm going to tell you, I think of all the people I've met, I don't think that there is a single person that if you would approach and you would say, hey, you might have a chance of becoming ill. You might have a chance of losing your memory. Do you want your spouse, your loved one, to die before you because they're taking care of you with the inability to survive the psychological and emotional and physical strain? Do you want them to die? There's not a single person who would say, yes, that's what I want. They're going to keep me at home, by golly, and I'm going to kill them, and that's my job. No, ever would anyone say
right.
that. When
right.
it's just and Betsy, you mentioned the guilt of it all. That is so prevalent.
Yes.
What would happen? We want to take care of our loved one, and because the disease is regressive, we think we've got it mastered. Oh boy, finally I can know how to handle this. We know how to get there on time. I can get her to stop asking me these questions. I can put up a bulletin board and say we're leaving at 10:15 and so forth. You wake up the next morning and you step backwards. Now you have to figure it out now what am I doing wrong? Not only what am I doing wrong, maybe I've got to be spending more time. And so maybe you spend more time, and then begins the cycle of not eating right, of not sleeping right, of not socializing, of not getting out with respite care and so forth. And so, Betsy, you and I both know and want to share with our listeners, it is a very difficult journey. There is no
Yes.
question about it. And because it is so difficult, we've got to be so much particularly aware of the pitfalls, but also the blessings that come with it. And as I said before, we can't beat this disease head on, but what we can do, which is very realizable, something that we can actually accomplish, and that is helping our loved one live their best life possible, by joining their world. And then helping our loved one, too, by taking care of ourselves.
Absolutely. Now, how long were you married? I know you're married. Were you married you knew Elaine for 70 years. Are you married for like over 60 years? When
sure.
Elaine died?
61 years. So we were married
Wow.
in 1961 on June 3rd, and she passed away roughly 2 years ago. And so it would have been 61 years that we were married, and we met as freshmen in high school. And I fell in love with her right away. That was it. But one thing, in talking about Elaine, when I wrote the book, I'm ready to go to print. And lo and behold, before I go to print, actually, I find a series of notes and journals that Elaine had been keeping since her diagnosis. When I found them and I read through them, I want you to know, Betsy, that we had prayed together and we had cried together, but never did I understand how important I was to her as her lifeline. Never did I realize that. So my daughters and I went through her notes and journals, and what it gave was a true insight into the emotions and the worry and the concern and the love that a person experiences diagnosed with this disease as this disease moves forward. And so each chapter in the book, My Two Elaines, begins with one of Elaine's notes or journals that we believe sort of appropriately helps the reader get a sense of what it's like to be diagnosed with this disease, but then also, because of that, giving the reader a better insight into what they can do to help their loved one and themselves live their best life possible. And it's not a medical book. It's not anything that, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book too, Betsy, and that is because when Elaine was diagnosed, I went to, the bookstore and I looked, oh my gosh, there's 15, 20 books lined up on Alzheimer's, and some wonderful books if you can go through the detail of it all. But the thing is, it's almost like you there's a fire and you need a fire extinguisher, but now you have to study on the impact of chemicals on a fire and how the heat relates to the flame and the flame relates to the oxygen and so forth. No, you don't have time for that. What can I do that's practical? And so I didn't find that, and that's why another reason why I wrote the book, so that there could be an easy primer to just at least get to the basics of understanding if Alzheimer's is bad, ignorance of the disease is worse.
Yes. That's why I went in my car, Marty, because I wanted to break the myths. My husband was 56 when he was diagnosed, and speaking of ignorance, even the doctors at that time, 2010, were ignorant of early onset Alzheimer's. Oh no, he couldn't have it. He's too young. But and I was married 39 years. Had just been 39 years, November 1st, 2019, when and that passed January 1st, 2020. So we were married 39 years. But I learned such a deep unconditional love, and you were married much longer, and I know that you had that, but did you find that your love for Elaine grew so much more during her journey with Alzheimer's? Like you could just look at her eyes and you just know, the love doesn't go away.
Yeah. The love never goes away. But let me share an experience I had. Sure. When Elaine went into assisted living, we would many times eat in the cafeteria. I would go there with her for lunch or dinner and so forth. So, one day we're having lunch, and she's starting to cry. And I says, Elaine, why are you crying? Well, she says, I'm beginning to love you more than my husband. Well, I didn't ask her what's wrong with your turkey husband. I didn't do that. But here is what that meant to me. It meant to me that it is not necessary for her to know my name in order for our hearts to touch. That our hearts can touch by holding of hands, by giving a hug, by singing a song, by just being together, by looking at each other in the eyes, and so we sometimes get hung up with the fact that our loved one doesn't know our name. Well, that's okay. And children and grandchildren and so forth should realize it's not necessary for them for our loved ones to know the name, for the hearts to touch. And so why that becomes important is, well, she doesn't know me anyway, so why should I go visit? Well, not quite so. I definitely believe that our loved one can sense and feel when there is that love in the room. And,
absolutely.
Yes. And so, Betsy, as you and I travel this journey with our loved one, what else could we give them other than a showing of our love? There, all of the tea in China, all the gold in the world, all of the travels and so forth, nothing is worth anything other than maybe the comfort of knowing we're helping our loved one live their best life possible, helping them have some moments of joy, and that's by the showing of love. So that's
absolutely,
what it comes to.
Yes, absolutely, Marty. I agree. Like, as Matt progressed, I was fortunate. We were fortunate. Josh, my son, our son, sometimes he would get us confused, but he knew our names. But except Betsy, he called me Booby. And he knew. And I always tell people, talk to your loved one. Even though they don't know your name, it doesn't matter. Talk to them. They know your voice. They feel the love. And I have another saying, Marty, dementia robs the brain. I firmly believe it cannot ever rob the heart of love. The heart knows love. It does.
Yes.
And they know. They know your voice.
Yeah.
They know the love.
So Pier Angelo, the very famous author, she wrote, and I can never come back with the grace of words that she came, but as I would paraphrase it, that people may not remember what you did. They may not remember what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And
absolutely.
I think of that many times. And again, getting back to what you and I could offer our loved one, and that was our love. And nothing else in the world could matter, because that's the only thing that maybe they could only sense and feel. But they can sense and feel it.
Yes. And, we could teach our children, grandchildren, if you have any, great-grandchildren. There is valuable life lessons that they can learn by visiting their grandparent or parents who have some kind of dementia. Don't let your grandchildren fear your loved one. You could do a family activity. It doesn't matter if their grandparent doesn't know their name. They know the voice, I'm telling you, and the love. Josh we lived with my mother-in-law, so he was exposed at a young age, as a teenager, to Alzheimer's. And his grandfather, his dad, and he learned unconditional love for his dad and his grandma, because he did things for them and he knew that they couldn't do things for him. And so he learned compassion and empathy. Those are important emotions and values to have. So we could teach our children, grandchildren by example, to not fear. And some people are afraid.
Yes. Well, yes, they are. And in life, what can you and I pass on to our children? Well, money and gold and riches and so forth. But what good does that do them spiritually? It does them absolutely nothing. But to be able to pass on to children compassion and concern and acceptance and understanding, opportunity, hope, to be able to pass on those things, those are the most meaningful things that we could, it's the comparison, Betsy, that I come to is, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, give a person the fishing pole, and you can feed him for the rest of his life. So the
right.
fishing pole that we would give our loved ones for the rest of the life is to have them sense this impact of a disease, to have them face the need for understanding, the need for compassion, to have them be aware that there's other things in life than just whatever might be the next show or the next movie or the next song and so forth. And so, so as you talk and I listen to you, Betsy, it's hard to say this, and I don't think you and I would ever want to say, okay, well, we're willing to give up our loved ones so we could be in a position of having that kind of insight of understanding now. I don't think we would ever say we want to exchange that. But if we have to lose our loved one, and we do, and we are able then to get a better understanding of this and share it with other people, if there's one thing worse than Alzheimer's, it's ignorance of the disease. So to be able to help people, wow,
yes,
so good for you.
Yes, I've been talking about Alzheimer's for at least, I got on Facebook 2014, but first time I got my smartphone, I think it was 2016 or 17, and that's when I really started to, just do videos and tell people and advocate. Mm-hmm. And this show, Chatting with Betsy, is from Matt. Really, it really comes from Matt's journey, and Matt's journey made me a better person, and we have a choice, right, Marty? We either could become bitter or better. And I know you probably would say you became a better person. You're doing things that you probably thought you never would do. Even though you were a spokesperson, you were a politician, that's different than advocating for your loved one or talking about a disease.
Well, Betsy, there is nothing, I don't think, that can prepare any person
True.
to be a caregiver for this for this disease, because there's so much tradition and lifestyle, that we are used to, and when I say tradition and lifestyle, I'm talking about the arrogance of many men as we refuse to ask for direction, the thinking that if someone doesn't know our name, that it doesn't pay to visit them, to think that by asking for help we're betraying some, and so it's almost, Betsy, I don't know what your thought is, but it's almost like your loved one is diagnosed with this disease. It's almost that you have to go to the blackboard, which shows my age, and erase everything that's on that blackboard and almost begin to start anew, because it's no longer keeping the person in our world. It's now joining their world. It's no longer thinking that we can't, place someone into assisted living. It's no longer thinking that because they don't know our name, they don't care and they're not valued anymore. And all of those kinds of things that we, just have to begin to learn anew. And again, Betsy, I get to this point. It's a terrible disease, and we can't fight it in this day and age. And we do have these realizable goals, and that is to help our loved one live their best life possible, and thereby needing us to live our best life possible. But you and I both know, and you and I don't think would ever deny to any of your listeners the fact that this is one tough, difficult job. And we've got to use every resource we have at it, and we've got to remain strong and healthy and wide awake and non-alcoholic inclined. So
I have to tell you, Marty, I always encourage people. They say, Betsy, why did you name your group #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement? I thought either was they going to kick mine or I was going to kick theirs. And how do you do that? It's a disease. You do it by enjoying life.
Yeah.
Like you said, giving our loved ones their best moments. Matt loved going to Starbucks. He loved going to Dunkin' Donuts. And he loved going to the mall with Josh and I. And even though he didn't know his birthday, our birthdays, or anniversaries, we celebrated anyway. I said, bring the party home. Bring the party to where your loved one is. Don't, I think a lot of caregivers they get in their own way. Oh, my husband or my wife doesn't remember. Don't take it personal. Celebrate anyway. And that's what we did. We celebrated. I still celebrate my anniversary and Matt's birthday. I don't care what people think. They lived on this earth. Why can't we celebrate?
Well, sure. And then, Betsy, that goes to one of your points that you made earlier, and that is nobody should judge,
Right.
because nobody really understands what is happening and what the challenge is. And rather than judging, to ask, maybe, help me understand better what you're going through, or can I go to the store and pick up the medications, or can I cut your lawn, or can I do something? And as far as people wanting to help out caregivers, my suggestion is don't ask, to say, give me a call if I can help you sometime, because caregivers have enough on their mind about taking care of everything. Now they have to try and figure out a chore for you to do, because but so keep it sort of specific, and even stopping by and visiting for 25 minutes or 15 minutes so the caregiver can get out for a little bit of a walk and a little bit of respite. And by doing that, I think a person's life who's going to be doing the visiting and the helping, they're going to have an expansive experience in their life that's going to, I think, resonate and help them, be a more helpful kind of person in everything that do otherwise in life.
Absolutely. Maury, I could talk to you for hours. I mean, we didn't even get into, caregiver abandonment, friends leaving us, family because they're afraid, they don't know what to say, they don't know what to do, or they just figured, if I put my head in the sand, it doesn't exist. And I'm sure that you probably experienced that also.
Betsy, I call this disease not a chicken casserole disease. If I have heart trouble, for example, or if I have a hip replacement, people will bring me chicken casserole because they know now my wife is ill. Because they're ignorant of the disease, they don't know what to do. So as you stated, they stay away. And so now not only am I dealing with the fact that my loved one is going to be leaving me a little bit every day, I have to deal with the fact that these friends of 25, 30, 40 years, now I think they're abandoning me. They're deserting me. And one of the times when I need assistance and support the most, they don't do that because they're mean. They're just ignorant of the disease. And if we can help people better understand the challenge of this disease, nobody asked for it. It's not like we went out on a binge on a Saturday night and stayed out till 3 o'clock in the morning and so forth, and therefore deserve this. It's the kind of thing that comes about, and hopefully, as good people, we can say, okay, we can support one another, and we can make a difference in your life, and we can give you some respite, or make a little bit of a difference. And so, no, you're right on target as far as the feeling of the desertion and the abandonment. And it's again, listeners, listen to Betsy. It's a tough, challenging life, and it's not going to solve it perfectly, but at least some insight into how to better help your loved one live their best life possible. And you too, as a listener, your own as a caregiver.
Yes, absolutely. I had people, I used to take videos of Matt, Marty, and I showed the good, bad, and the ugly of this disease. But people would say, oh, Betsy, I see you taking Matt out. I'm going to take my spouse out now. And, to encourage people, you know what? You don't have to sit and wait around for your loved one to die. Go out, go to concerts, do what you can do now, and enjoy life, because this disease is so unpredictable. You don't know when the next stage or how they're going to progress. It's unpredictable. But you're right. Live your best life. Go out and do what you could do before you can't do it anymore, or you're going to need more assistance. And going out.
Right, but I look at this. There's a caveat to that, and that is you're doing your loved one a favor by keeping yourself by doing things like that, by keeping yourself in the mental state, the psychological period of strength where you are able to better help your loved one, to get that refreshment in mind, so that all of the issues that you're dealing with don't become so overwhelming that we're irrationally irritable and then of no help to anyone. So caregivers have to understand that by taking care of themselves, they are helping their loved one. So we've got to somehow or another get that into people's heads.
Yes, because they pick up on our emotions. If you're agitated, I guarantee you your loved one will be agitated because they're going to feed off of your energy. It took me a little time to realize that, Marty, but I got it. I finally realized it. And, people think, I have to reorientate my person. They're asking about their parents or saying their parents visited them and they're dead. Just go with it. Matt used to tell me he saw his mom and dad and his brother. I'd say, oh, that's nice. Did you have a good visit with them? Mm-hmm. You talk about that in your book, Living in Your Loved One's World. You had to learn to live in Elaine's world. I learned to live in Matt's world. Didn't know that with my mother-in-law. So by the time Matt started to hallucinate, I was prepared. I had prepared Josh, and you become great improv actors. That's what I call it. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you so much for writing your book, Martin, and coming on the show. Where can people find your book, My Two Elaines, Learning, Coping, and Surviving as an Alzheimer's Caregiver?
Well, first of all, we have a website, mytwoelaines.com, all one word. And but certainly by all the bookstores that I have come in contact with have it or can get it. Then, of course, you go to the old standby of Amazon and so forth. But it's out also in ebook form, I understand, and it's so available. Or if there's any questions that people have, they can get in touch with us on mytwoelaines.com.
Well, I want to thank you so much. And, folks, I highly recommend going on the website, learn more about Martin Schreiber and his lovely, beloved wife, Elaine. And may her memory always be a blessing to you and your family, Marty. You're just such an advocate, I just want to say a sweetheart. You have such a passion, and I love that. I love when people have a passion for what they do, and you could just feel it. And thank you. Martin Schreiber, former Wisconsin governor. I'm going to say it again, author and writer, caregiver advocate, Alzheimer's advocate of My Two Elaines, Learning, Coping, and Surviving as an Alzheimer's Caregiver. Folks, run to your computer, pick it up, give it as a gift. If you know someone that's a caregiver, why don't you give it to them? Why don't you buy it as a gift? If you're a caregiver, buy it. This is a disease that is beyond heartbreaking, and we need to support each other through it. And I want to thank you so much, Martin Schreiber, for all that you do for caregivers and for advocating. People need to hear it. People need to hear from a male viewpoint also. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed chatting with you today.
Betsy, it's been my pleasure. I want to say you're welcome, but I want to tell you thank you. Because I know what kind of difference you have. I've traveled the road. I've journeyed the journey, and I know what you are saying and doing and working to accomplish is to try and help that traveling of that journey become easier for people. So thank you for that. That's wonderful what you do. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Folks, all the information about Martin Schreiber and the book and the website will be in the blog. that Jeannie White, the station manager, writes. Please read the blog. And Jeannie produces the show. And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passion World Talk Radio, that makes this all possible. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Please share this podcast to help other caregivers, just to get the word out. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to be a resource. And Martin Schreiber is an excellent resource. His book is an excellent resource. So please share this show with other people, because I want to help as many people as possible, and I need your help to do it. And if you don't already subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, it's for free on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Music, Apple, just to name a few. And if you are a caregiver, you need support, I have #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement on Facebook. Everyone's welcome. And you can follow me on Facebook, Betsy E. Wurzel, Wurzel. You could see what I'm about. What you hear on the radio is what you'll see on my Facebook page. I'm just a Jersey girl here trying to help people and have a passion to help people. I want to pay it forward. And as I always say at the end of my show, in a world where you could be anything, please be kind, shine your light bright, because we need it now more than ever. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passion World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Bye-bye now. Chat with you later.